Welcome to this channel. Today we will be reading about the chapter 5 called A Visit to the Island of the novel called The Famous Five, written by Annette Blyton. Here with me is Havisha Rathod. Shall we start, Havisha, without wasting further time?
Yes.
Okay, then start.
A visit to the island. The children's aunt arranged a picnic for them the next day, and they all went off to a little cove, not far. Cove.
Was it pronounced like that? This is a cow. Cow or what is it? Cow. 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 Not cow. Cow. Okay.
Cove.
Sheltered away. Okay, next.
Went to a little cove,
Not
not far off, where they could bath and paddle to their hearts. अरे पीछे वाला
Hearts content.
content.
You have to read, Avisha. Read, Avisha. No, you
They
have
had a wonderful day, but secretly, Julian, Dick, and Annie wished that they could have visited George's island. They would rather have done that than anything. George didn't want to go for the picnic, not because she disliked picnics, but because she couldn't take her dog. Her mother went with the children, and George had to pass a whole day without her beloved Timothy. Bad luck, said Julian, who guessed that she was brooding.
Guess what?
Guessed what? She was brooding. मतलब
Brooding means सोच रही थी. Brooding about. सोच रहा. सोच
I
रहा.
can't think why you don't tell your mother about old Tim. I'm sure she wouldn't mind you letting someone else keep him for you. I know my mother wouldn't mind. I'm not going to tell anybody but you, said George. I get into awful trouble at home always. I dare say it's my fault. I dare say it's my fault. But I get
Bit.
a bit tired of it. You see, Daddy doesn't make much money with the learned books, and he writes, and he's always wanting to give Mother and me things he can't afford. So that makes him bad-tempered. He wants to send me away to a good school, but he hasn't got the money. I'm glad. I don't want to go away to school. I like being here. I couldn't bear to part with Timothy. You're like boarding school, said Annie. We all go. It's fun. No, it isn't, said George obstinately. मतलब
जिद्दी से.
Absolutely. It must be awful to be one of a crowd and to have other girls all laughing and yelling around you. I should hate it. No, you wouldn't, said Annie. All that is great fun. It would be good for you, George, I should think. If you start telling me what is good for me, I shall hate you, said George, suddenly looking very fierce. Mother and father are always saying that things are good for me, and they are always the things I don't like. All right, said Julian, beginning to laugh. My goodness, how you do go up in smoke? Go up in smoke मतलब?
धुएं में और क्या मतलब गुस्सा आता है all right says beginning to laugh. My goodness, how you do go up in smoke. Honestly, I believe anyone could light a cigarette from this spark. धुआं होता है ना, उसको बोलते हैं smoke.
Go up in smoke का मतलब गुस्सा नहीं होता, कोई idiom proverb नहीं है?
नहीं
Go up in
लिखा हुआ ना cigarette, देखो ना.
Honestly, I believe anyone could light a cigarette from the sparks that fly from your eyes. That made George laugh, though she didn't want to. It was really impossible to sulk with good-tempered Julian. They went off to bath in the sea for the 5th time that day. Soon they were all splashing about happily. and George found time to help Annie to swim. The little girl hadn't got the right stroke, मतलब
ये सही तरीके से होता है ना, स्विमिंग में बहुत सारे स्ट्रोक आते हैं, बटरफ्लाई स्ट्रोक है, ये सब स्ट्रोक, तो किस तरह से स्विम करना है उसको आया नहीं.
got the right stroke, and George felt really proud when she had taught her. Oh, thanks, said Annie, struggling along. Struggling, मतलब
स्ट्रगल मीन्स कोशिश करना है बार बार.
struggling around. I'll never be as good as you, but I'd like to be as good as the boys. As they were going home, George spoke to Julian. Could you say that you want to go and buy a stamp or something? She said. Then I could go with you and just have a peep at old Tim. He'll be wondering why I haven't taken him out today. Right, said Julian. I don't want stamps, but I could do with an ice. Dick and Annie can go home. Dick and Annie can go home with your mother and carry the things. I'll just go and tell Aunt Fanny. He ran up to his aunt. Do you mind if I go and buy some ice creams? He asked. We haven't had one today. I won't be long. Can George go with me? I don't expect she will. She will want to, said his aunt. But you can ask her. George, come with me, yelled Julian, setting off to the little village at a great pace, मतलब
स्पीड
at a great pace.
चलने की स्पीड है, ग्रेट स्पेस में जल्दी जल्दी चली वो.
हाँ. George gave a sudden grin and ran after him. She soon caught him up and smiled gratefully at him.
Smiled
Gratefully at him. Thanks, she said. You go and get the ice creams, and I'll have a look at him. They parted. Parted मतलब?
अलग-अलग हो गए.
Julian bought 4 ice creams and turned to go home. He waited for George, who came running after a few minutes. Her face was glowing. He's all right, she said, and you can't imagine how pleased he was to see me. He nearly jumped over my head. I say, another ice cream for me. You really are a sport, Julian. I'll have to share something with you quickly. What about going to my island tomorrow? Golly, मतलब
गोली नाम है किसी का?
Golly.
लड़के का नाम है.
Golly, said Julian, his eyes shining. Golly किसी लड़के का नाम तोड़ना है.
तो क्या नाम है?
पता नहीं.
Julian is calling na name. It's a name only.
Golly.
First letter is capital.
Golly, said Julian, his eyes shining. That would be marvelous. Will you really take us tomorrow? Come on, let's tell the others. The 4 children sat in the garden eating their ices. Julian told them what George had said. They all felt excited. George was pleased. She had always felt quite important before when she had a haughtily मतलब
ऐसे बोलते हैं ऐसे.
She had haughtily refused to take any of the other children to Secure Island, but it felt much nicer somehow to have consented मतलब
Accept करना. Consent में
consented to her cousins there. I used to think it was much nicer always to do things on my own, she thought, as she sucked the last bits of her eyes. But it's going to be fun doing things with Julian and the others. The children were sent to wash themselves and to get tidy before supper. They talked eagerly about the visit to the island next day. Their aunt heard them and smiled. Well, I really must say I'm pleased that George is
I'm
going.
pleased. अब शायद
I'm
D वाला sound you're not telling. आप बोल ही नहीं रहे हो.
I am pleased that George is going to share something with you, she said. Would you like to take your dinner there and spend the day? It's hardly worthwhile rowing all the way there and landing unless you are going to spend some hours there. Oh, oh, Aunt Fanny, it would be marvelous to take our dinner, cried Annie. George looked up. Are you coming too, Mother? She asked. You don't sound at all as if you want me to, said her mother, in a hurt tone. You looked cross yesterday, too, when you found I was coming. No, I shan't come tomorrow, but I'm sure your cousins must think you are an odd girl, never to want your mother to go with you. George said nothing. She hardly ever did say a word when she was scolded. The the other children said nothing too. They knew perfectly well that it wasn't that George didn't want her mother to go. It was just that she wanted Timothy with her. Anyway, I couldn't come, went on Aunt Fanny. I've some gardening to do. You'll be quite safe with George. She can handle a boat like a man. The three children looked eagerly at the weather the next day. When they got up, the sun was shining and everything seemed splendid.
Everything.
And everything seemed splendid. Isn't it a marvelous day? Said Annie to George as they dressed. I'm so looking forward to going to the island. Well, honestly, I think really we oughtn't to go. Oughtn't to मतलब?
Ought means नहीं चाहिए. Ought means चाहिए. So I think really we oughtn't to go. मतलब हमें नहीं जाना चाहिए. Okay?
I think really we oughtn't.
Ought not का short form है oughtn't.
Ought not. Ought not मतलब क्या होता है?
Ought का मतलब है चाहिए. We ought not to go. Ought not to go. If I say we ought to go, मतलब हमें जाना चाहिए.
I think we ought not to go, said George unexpectedly. Oh, but why? Cried Annie in dismay. I think there's going to be a storm or something, said George, looking out at the southwest.
Read. What happened?
Okay. But George, why do you see that? Said Annie impatiently, looking at the sun.
Impatiently.
Looking at the sun, and there's
Looking at the sun.
Look at the sun, and there's hardly a cloud in the sky. The wind is wrong, said George. And can't you see the little white tops of the waves out there by my island? That's always a bad sign. Oh, George, it will be the biggest disappointment of our lives if we don't go today, said Annie, who couldn't bear any disappointment, big or small. And besides, she added artfully, if we hang about the house, afraid of a storm, we shan't be able to have dear old Tim with us. Yes, that's true, said George. All right, we'll go. But mind, if a storm does come, you're not to be a baby. You are to try and enjoy it and not be frightened. Well, I don't much like storms, began Annie, but stopped when she saw George's scornful look. Scornful look, matlab?
गुस्से वाला look से चिड़चिड़ा सा.
They went down to breakfast. Breakfast. And George asked her mother if they could take their dinner as they planned. As they had planned. Yes, said her mother. You and Annie can help to make their sandwiches. You boys can go into the garden and pick some ripe plums to take with you. Julian, you can go down to the village when you've done that and buy some bottles of lemonade and ginger beer, whichever you like. Ginger pop for me, thanks. Ginger pop क्या होता है?
कोई होगा ना जिंजर का टेस्ट होगा कोई बोतल होगा.
Ginger pop for me, thanks, said Julian, and everyone else said the same. They all felt very happy. It would be marvelous to visit the strange little island.
Little island.
Little island. George felt happy because she would be with Tim all day. They set off at last, the food in 2 kit bags. The first thing they did was to fetch Tim. He was tied up in the fisher boy's backyard. The boy himself was there and grinned at George. Morning, Master George, he said. It seemed so funny to the other children to hear Georgina called Master George. Tim's been barking his head off for you. I guess he knew you were coming for him today. Of course he did, said George, untying him. He at once went completely mad and tore round and round the children, his tail down, his ears flat. He'd win any race if only he were a greyhound. मतलब?
It is a type of a dog.
Greyhound, said Julian admiringly. You can hardly see him for dust. Tim, hey Tim, come and say good morning. Tim leapt up and licked Julian's left ear as he passed on his whirlwind
घूमते हुए.
whirlwind wave. Then he sobered down. Sobered मतलब?
Serious हो गया.
He sobered down
Udaas tha.
and ran lovingly by George as they all made their way to the beach. He licked George's bare legs every now and again, and she pulled at his ears gently. They got into the boat, and George pushed off. The fisher boy waved to them. You won't be very long, will you? He called. There's a storm blowing up. Bad one night it'll be too. I know, shouted back George, but maybe we'll get back before it begins. It's pretty far off yet. George rowed all the way to the island. Tim stood at each end of the boat in turn, barking when the waves reared up at him. The children watched the island coming closer and closer. It looked even more exciting than it had the other day. George, where are you going to land? Asked Julian. I simply can't imagine how you know your way in and out of these awful rocks. I am afraid every moment we'll bump into them. I'm going to land at the little cove. Cove I told you about the other day, said George. There's only one way to it, but I know it very well. It's hidden away on the east side of the island. The girl cleverly worked her boat in and out of the rocks, and suddenly, as it rounded a low wall of sharp rocks, the children saw the cove she had spoken of. It was like a natural little harbor. Harbor मतलब
जहाँ जहाज वगैरह रुकते हैं ना किनारा
harbor. And she was a smooth inlet.
Where is she here?
And was a smooth inlet मतलब
आने वाला पानी.
inlet of water running up to a stretch of sand, sheltered between high rocks. The boat slid into the inlet मतलब the boat slid into the inlet का
अब
मतलब.
जैसे कि वो होता है ना विशा, आपकी सिंक है, सिंक में टैप है, तो इनलेट कहाँ, जहाँ से पानी आता है टैप के अंदर, और जो टैप से बाहर आता है उसको बोलते हैं आउटलेट. ओके.
The boat slid.
सिमिलरली फॉर वॉशिंग मशीन, इफ यू से पानी अगर वॉशिंग मशीन में जाता है तो उसको इनलेट बोलते हैं, और वॉशिंग मशीन से पानी बाहर आता है उसको आउटलेट बोलते हैं.
अच्छा.
Got it?
The boat slid into the inlet and at once stopped rocking. Rocking मतलब?
रॉकिंग में इधर उधर होता है ना, रॉक.
हाँ.
ये झूलना ऐसे.
For here, the water was like glass.
Water was like glass, not washer.
And
water.
had hardly a wrinkle. I say, this is fine, said Julian, his eyes shining with delight. George looked at him and her eyes shone too. as bright as the sea itself. It was the first time she had ever taken anyone to her precious island, and she was enjoying it. They landed on the smooth yellow sand. We are really on the island, said Annie, and she capered मतलब
Catboard. You see that?
डिक्शनरी से
Why, Visha?
अरे भैया टाइपिंग में देरी होती है
कहाँ है देखो कितना टाइम लगता है? Caper.
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 Keeper.
Caper.
Skip or dance about in a lively or playful way. So yeah, children were capering about the room. You see the images capering. See they are dancing. See the dance. See they are also doing like that same thing. Got it?
ऊपर जाना
I'm thinking you won't forget the word, right?
This लड़की is also capering.
Yeah.
Capering मतलब dancing है ना?
हाँ इधर डांस करना इधर उधर करना ऐसे. Okay.
Capering.
Capered about.
Capered about.
Next.
Tim joined her.
Joining her, Visha. Read properly, beta.
Tim joining her and looking as mad as she did. The others laughed. George pulled the boat high up on the sand. Why so far up? Said Julian, helping her. The tide's almost in, isn't it? Tides मतलब
टाइड पानी की टाइड होती है पानी ये ऊपर उठना नीचे उठना टाइड पानी ये समुद्र की जो लहरें ऊपर उठती हैं ना एकदम से ऐसे ऊपर हो जाती है उसको बोलते हैं टाइड.
The tide's almost in, isn't it? Surely it won't come as high as this. I told you I thought a storm was coming, said George. If one does, the waves simply tear up this inlet.
tear up.
Tear up this inlet, and we don't want to lose our boat, do we? Let's explore the island. Let's explore the island, yelled Annie, who was now at the top of the little natural harbor. Climbing up the rocks there. Oh, do come on. They all followed her. It really was the most exciting place. Rabbits were everywhere. They scuttled about as the children scuttle मतलब
किधर इधर चले जाना है जो खरगोश चले जाते हैं ना विशा.
हाँ
क्यों गए इधर इधर से क्यों गए
पता
क्योंकि वो लोग आ गए अभी कटल्ड बोट.
ये कोई एनिमल है क्या?
कटल्ड बोट
कटल फिश.
कटल्ड अबाउट अब आएगा मीनिंग. To fold cloth in plates after it has been finished. इधर नहीं जाना बैठ जाना. A band wall typically of clay that encircles an object to be molded. मतलब ऐसे ऐसे हाथ पैरों को एक जगह ले लेना इधर उधर भागना नहीं. ठीक है. And cuddled about. Cuddled about is not there. And there are no images.
कोई खाना होगा.
नहीं coddle. Cuddled. I wrote the wrong spelling. See, to allow clothes to lie without further treatment after filling, milling, scoring. Cuddle about milling. That's the meaning, okay? And
नहीं समझ में आया.
नहीं समझ आया. We'll see. Where is that word? Here. The scuttled
था cuddled नहीं.
Scuttled. Sink one's own ship deliberately by holding it or opening it. See, okay. Deliberately cause a scheme to fail. Some of the stockholders are okay. An opening with a cover in a ship's deck. Scuttle. Got it, Avisha? They scuttled about as the children appeared, but did not go into their holes. मतलब ऐसे बैठ गए. ठीक है? ऐसे हाथ पैरों को ऐसे कर लिया ऐसे.
Aren't they awfully tame? मतलब
Tame को पता है नहीं जो सुनता अपनी बात को.
Tame, said Julian in surprise. Well, nobody ever comes here but me, said George. And I won't, and I don't frighten them. Tim, if you go after the rabbits, I'll be furious. Tim turned big, sorrowful eyes onto George. He and George agreed about every single thing except rabbits. To Tim, rabbits were made for one thing, to chase. He never could understand why George wouldn't let him do this. But he held himself and walked solemnly.
Solemnly.
मतलब
Solemnly means चुपचाप से कोई शोर करके जाता है कि अरे कोई चुपचाप से solemn mean formal, dignified, solemn process characterized by deep sincerity. Okay, seriously. Okay, solemn. Got it, Avisha?
solemn मतलब
Serious, deep, sincere, to observe or honor with solemnity.
Oh.
Okay, solemnize. Solemning. Okay, solemn. Okay. Got it, Avisha?
Seriously है ना?
Solemning. कहाँ पर है?
कहाँ गया?
Yeah, yeah.
हाँ.
Solemnly.
By the children, his eyes watching the lolloping मतलब.
Lolloping rabbits longingly. Longing means chona.
Lolloping.
Lolloping means lolloping.
Lolloping.
Double L.
Low.
Lollop. Move in an ungainly way in a series of clumsy paces of bounds. मतलब कि clumsy way से वो चल रहा था वो.
Clumsy मतलब.
Clumsy इधर उधर लूज वैसे ऐसे excited नहीं, energy पूरा वाला नहीं, क्योंकि उसको मिला नहीं था ना चेज करने के लिए, इसलिए ये तो गैलप उतार का lollop. ठीक है? Lolloping rabbits longingly, watching the lolloping rabbits longingly. Okay. His eyes watching the lolloping rabbits. में उछलते हुए, जब rabbit उछलता है ना ऐसे, उसको बोलते हैं lolloping rabbits longingly. Okay. जैसे घोड़े चल रहे थे ना, ये देखो घोड़े चल रहे हैं ऐसे चल के, हाँ? If I ride
freely.
हाँ?
Freely.
Yeah, see this way. थोड़ा jump करते हुए ऐसे, Not freely, ऐसे jump करते हुए ना विशा. Lolloping rabbit, if I say, it will come like this. See, they're jumping. Okay, see the way they are jumping rabbits. See, okay.
Okay.
Who's this girl? I don't know.
The favorite rabbit.
Okay, next.
Lolloping rabbits longingly.
Longing means?
मैं जानती हूँ.
दादा?
Longingly यानी
चाहते हुए. So they are there. So he's the doctor. And these are the five. Okay. And where's the rabbit here? These are the rabbits. You see? Can you see them?
हाँ.
Okay, next. Read.
I believe they would almost eat off my hand.
Eat out.
Eat out of my hand, said Julian, but George shook her head. No, I've tried that with them, she said. They won't. Look at those baby ones. Aren't they lovely? Woof, said Tim, agreeing, and he took a few steps towards them. George made a warning noise in her throat, and Tim walked back, his tail down. There's the castle, said Julian. Shall we explore that now? I'd want to. Yes, we will, said George. Look, there is where the entrance... That is where the entrance used to be, through that big broken archway. The children gazed at the enormous old archway. Gazed मतलब?
देखना ऐसे घूर के देखना है, एक नजर से देखना था.
Gazed at the enormous old archway, now half broken down. Behind it were behind it were ruined stone steps leading towards the center of the castle. It had strong walls all around it with 2 towers, said George. One tower is almost gone, as you can see, but the other is not so bad. The jackdaws मतलब
Jackdaw buildings.
Copy. Good copy करा कर. Jackdaws. Hey. ये तो कोई पक्का है, कोई चिड़िया है.
Jackdaw building.
Jackdaw.
It's not the bird.
Jackdaw.
Jackdaw. Jackdaws. The Jackdaws building.
Jackdaw.
A small grey-headed crow that typically nests in. I don't know that. A great building.
Is a
Small
jackdaw
grey-headed
good
crow.
luck?
This one building. मैं इस कलर के black कलर के होगा. The Jackdaws build in that every. Avisha,
In that every.
sit properly, Avisha. How can you go down like that?
Okay, आगे.
The Jackdaws build in that every year.
Here, they almost filled it up with their sticks.
But
As they came near to
Paxi है उधर. Paxi is a type of crow. Okay. You're right.
here, they almost filled it up with their sticks.
There.
As they came near to the better tower of the two, and the jackdaws circled round them with loud cries of chuck, 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 chuck.
The bird
Tim
only.
leapt into the air as if he thought that he could get them, but they only called mockingly to him. Mockingly मतलब?
चिढ़ाते हुए ऐसे mock करते हैं ना. जैसे आप कुछ बोलो फिर मैं कुछ बोलूँ.
Okay, समझ में आ
Mock
गया.
करना.
This is the center of the castle, said George, as they entered through a ruined doorway into what looked like a great yard whose stone floor was overgrown with grass and other weeds. Here is where the people used to live. You can see where the rooms were. Look, there's one almost hole there. Go through that little door and you'll see it. They trooped through a doorway and found themselves in a dark, stone-walled, stone-roofed room with a space at one end where a fireplace must have been. Two slit-like windows lit the room. It felt very strange and mysterious. What a pity!
What a pity, Avisha.
What a pity! It's all broken down, said Julian, wandering out again. Up there, that's all.
Huh? No, we have to finish one chapter. You said, na?
ये तो लंबा चैप्टर है.
No, it's going to be over. I think so.
दिखाओ.
See.
Oh God.
Start.
That room seems to be the only one quite whole. There are some others here.
There.
Others here. शुरू जाओ.
No, you have to read, Avisha.
But all
no,
of
first chapter you have to read.
But all of them seem to have either no roof or one or other of the walls gone. That room is the only livable one.
Livable.
Livable मतलब?
रहने like. Liable pronunciation will see because liable. Liable.
Livable.
Livable. You are right, Avisha.
Livable.
Correct. You are right, Avisha. Livable. Worth living. Okay.
Livable one. Was there an upstairs to the castle, George?
Of course.
Of course, said George, but the steps that led up are gone. Look, you can see part of an upstairs room there.
Upstairs room
there. By the jog tower. You can't get up to it, though, because I've tried.
Because I have tried.
Because I've tried. I nearly broke my neck trying to get up. The stones crumble away so. Were there any dungeons?
Dungeons. मतलब कैसे तहखाना वगैरह का बोलते हैं.
तहखाना. अब चलो आगे पढ़ते हैं.
Dungeon.
A strong underground prison cell,
Dungeon.
especially in a castle. You want to see the images? So this is a dungeon. Dungeon. Okay. Okay, next.
Okay. A dungeon कहाँ है?
You should see, na, where it is. Dungeons. Stones.
Were there any dungeons? Asked Dick. I don't know, said George. I expect so, but nobody could find them now. Everywhere is so overgrown. It was indeed overgrown. Big blackberry bushes grew here and there, and
A
few gorse मतलब यहाँ नहीं हाँ good boy.
A yellow flowered shrub of the pea family, the leaves of which are modified to form spines native to Western Europe. Okay, got it?
नहीं.
You want to see? Then
No,
you have to go
no.
there. Yeah, you want to see? You should see then. Huh? What is the meaning?
Dingens.
Gorge?
Gordina.
No. Gorse. Gorse bushes. These are the gorse. Okay?
Flower है क्या?
Oh, see?
Gorse.
A yellow flowered
Okay.
shrub of the pea family. Okay?
Gorse.
Gorse.
अरे पापा गूगल से अगली बार सर्च मत करना
Why?
प्लीज.
Okay, next question.
Gorse bushes force their way into gaps and corners.
Read.
The coarse मतलब डिक्शनरी से.
नहीं कोर्स में बड़ा फाइन होता है कोर्स होता है फाइन मींस पतला से छोटा बारीक से कोर्स में बारी बड़ा
The coarse green grass sprang everywhere. The pink thrift and pink thrift मतलब
thrift grew its cushions. thrift का वर्ब का मीनिंग है ऐसे हिलना वाला thrift होता है ठीक है और इसमें नाउन का यूज हो रहा है so it must be some thrift, the quality of using money or other resources a European plant which forms low growing of slender leaves with standard एक कम खर्चीला भी होता है थ्रिफ्ट को थ्रिफ्ट और लेकिन अगर ये प्लांट के तरह यूज हो रखा है नाउन है तो ये प्लांट कौन सा है थ्रिफ्ट प्लांट विद राइट थ्रिफ्ट प्लांट these are the thrift okay so it's written no the coarse green grass sprang everywhere and pink thrift grew its cushions
मतलब
the holes
नहीं पापा गूगल नहीं
questions of Isha
cushions oh god cushions तकिया
full of part ना तकिया तो है ही नहीं है
cushion
यहाँ वो यूज नहीं हो रहा ना cushion a bag of flows stuffed as something providing support and protection against impact soften the effect of an impact on mitigate the adverse effect yeah cushion
मैं बता रहा
grew its cushions in holes and crannies का पता है विशा
नहीं तो cushions मतलब
see cushion of a plant
cushion
a plant that grows in a dense cushiony tuft चलो ये इसका
cushion
हाँ ऊपर का पार्ट ठीक है जैसे
ओ गुड अच्छा गया दिखा के
हाँ
बढ़िया
और दूसरा क्या था क्रैनी होल्स एंड क्रैनीज
ये लगता नहीं है कोई फ्लावर
क्रैनी हो
है
गया विशा क्रैन जैसे पार्ट नहीं है टूटा हुआ सा एक होल हो गया एक ब्रिक है ठीक है करेक्ट विशा
क्रानी का मतलब
cranny a small narrow space or opening cranny okay
ओके अब दिखा दो रे
okay next
grew its cushions मतलब
बताया ना उसके ऊपर का पार्ट
cushions कोई प्लांट है ना
हाँ नहीं cushions of thrift see pink thrift grew its cushions in holes and crannies
मैं बस इतना बता दूं सेंटेंस का मतलब
सेंटेंस का मतलब ये प्लांट है ना पिंक थ्रिफ्ट वो अपना cushions जो कि ऊपर का पार्ट है ना सॉफ्ट वाला पोर्शन वो होल और टूटे हुए उसमें ले जाता है जैसे बेल होती है ना तो बेल कहीं भी चली जाती है ना जहाँ रास्ता मिला वहीं तो वहीं इसका इस प्लांट का जो क्वेश्चन पार्ट है, सॉफ्ट पार्ट है, जो लीव्स का ऊपर का हिस्सा, वो होल के अंदर और जो दरार वगैरह ना उसमें चली गई।
ओके। अजीब स्कैरी है ये कासल तो।
हैं?
स्कैरी है ये कासल तो।
राइट।
आगे भाई। अरे कृष्ण।
Well, read.
Well, I think it's a perfectly lovely place, said Annie. Perfectly and absolutely lovely. Do you really? Said George, pleased. I'm so glad. Look, we're right on the other side of the island now, facing the sea. Do you see those rocks with those peculiar, matlab,
Special type का।
peculiar big birds sitting there? The children looked. They saw some rocks.
Children looked.
The children looked. They saw some rocks sticking up with great black shining birds sitting on them in strange positions. They are cormorants. Cormorants. कोई bird है ना?
It's a type of birds, I think. Shall we see? Huh? Yes, yes.
Let's continue after this chapter finished.
We should see now.
Oi papa.
You don't want to see? What type of is this? What is that? You should see now, Isha.
अगर किससे देखूंगी. Okay.
Cormorant.
Cormorant. A large diving bird with a long neck, long hooked bill, short legs, and mainly dark plumage. It typically breeds on coastal cliffs. See, you will see the image. See, these are the one. Huh?
Okay.
See, you would have missed, no? Yes or no?
Nice.
How does it pronounce?
Cormorant.
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 Cormorant. Okay,
Cormorant.
next. They are cormorants, said
Said
George.
George. They've caught plenty of fish for their dinner.
For their dinner.
For their dinner. And they're sitting there digesting it. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. They're all flying away. I wonder why. Hello मतलब.
Hello वाला ना, hello बोलते हैं ना, तो ये जब इनका accent अलग है तो hello बोलते हैं, hello.
She soon knew, for from the southwest there suddenly came an ominous मतलब.
Ominous.
हाँ.
Ominous means चारों तरफ से होता है ना. Ominous means जो कि चारों तरफ से available है. See, ominous. Giving the worrying impression that something bad is going to happen, threateningly inauspicious. मतलब कि जैसे आता रहे ominous, मतलब कि खराब चीज़, कि कुछ इंडिकेशन है फ्यूचर का कि कुछ खराब होने वाला है. Ominous. Okay, there are no images for this, I think. See, she's thinking about something about bad is going to happen. Ominous. It's adjective. Next, where is that? Ominous. Rumble.
Rumble मतलब?
Rumble देखते हैं, sound जैसा है शायद.
वही तो मैं. आपको नहीं पता rumble का मतलब?
Make a continuous deep resonant sound.
Rumble.
जिसको ऐसा है, जैसे पत्थर वगैरह गिरते हैं ना, से तो इस तरह का साउंड rumble.
पेट rumble.
हाँ, पेट स्टमक rumble, ठीक है. अभी दो. Okay, next. Ominous.
Thunder, said George. That's the storm. It's coming sooner than I thought.
So that's all in this video. We have completed chapter number 5. I hope you liked this video. If you liked it, then don't forget to like, share and subscribe the channel. See you in the next video, next chapter.
We've completed chapter number 5.